As if last night was not painful enough, this morning brings a major transfer blow. The pursuit of a midfielder Celtic have been tracking all summer has been thrown into serious doubt because it was directly tied to Champions League qualification. And they are not in the Champions League anymore. We also have Luke McCowan making his Instagram private after a wave of abuse, Mika Biereth opening up on the dressing room after the final whistle, Chris Sutton sitting in his I told you so t-shirt, and an update on Reo Hatate, whose exit from the club now looks inevitable. Let's get into it. But first, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel for more Celtic content. Luke McCowan has made his Instagram account private following a torrent of abuse directed at him overnight after Celtic's Champions League collapse against Lask. McCowan came off the bench in the second half and had a night he will want to forget. He gave the ball away repeatedly in areas that cost the team, and a particularly poor decision to try and take on a Lask player in his own half ended with him losing possession and gifting the Austrians the attack that led to their fifth goal. He ended up as the lowest rated player across post-match ratings, picking up a 3 out of 10 from multiple publications. What happened on social media after the full-time whistle crossed a line that has nothing to do with football criticism. The abuse directed at McCowan was personal, sustained, and severe enough that he took the decision to make his account private this morning. The Celtic boys addressed it directly, pointing out that whatever McCowan's contribution last night, he walked onto that pitch trying to help his club reach the Champions League. He is as devastated as anyone. Holding a player accountable for poor performances is fair. Sending personal abuse to his social media pages overnight is not. McCowan will have to answer for last night through his football. He will get that opportunity on Saturday when Celtic face Falkirk at Parkhead. That is where the focus needs to be, not on keyboards. Now, for the main story, as Celtic's summer transfer plans have been thrown into significant doubt this morning, with the pursuit of Gvidas Gineitis now looking very uncertain after last night's Champions League exit. Gineitis, a 22-year-old Lithuanian international midfielder at Torino, has been one of the most consistently mentioned names in connection with Celtic throughout this window. He is the profile O'Neill has been searching for since Arne Engels departed for West Ham. Physically strong, dynamic, a genuine box-to-box presence with 32 caps for Lithuania and Champions League experience in his locker. Celtic had a bid rejected earlier in the window, but the interest never went away. On the eve of last night's second leg, Italian transfer expert Gianluca Di Marzio posted an update confirming Celtic remain focused on Gineitis before the accompanying Sky Sports Italy piece made the situation very clear. It stated that everything around the Gineitis move was being postponed until after the last result, and that Celtic's budget and transfer strategy would only be properly assessed once their European fate was known. The closing line read, "Tomorrow is the key day. Only in the next few hours will it be clear whether the interest in Gineitis will turn into a decisive move. Tomorrow is now today, and Celtic are in the Europa League. That matters enormously for a deal of this size. Torino's asking price has been reported at between £9 and £10 million. The financial difference between the Champions League league phase and the Europa League is enormous, with Champions League qualification worth upwards of £40 million in broadcast revenue alone. That money is gone. The budget looks different this morning than it did at kick-off last night. Celtic News understands that personal terms with Gineitis would not have been an issue. The player was keen on the move. The deal was moving. Now O'Neill and his recruitment team must decide this week whether a deal of this scale still makes sense in the context of Europa League football and a transfer deadline that arrives on September the 3rd. The window closes in 8 days. In other news, Mika Biereth has spoken publicly about what he experienced inside the Celtic dressing room after last night's final whistle, giving supporters a rare, honest glimpse of the atmosphere in the immediate aftermath of one of the club's most painful European results. Biereth arrived at Celtic just weeks ago from Paderborn, and last night was only his second competitive start for the club. He had impressed in the first leg at Parkhead, showing composure and intelligence in central midfield on one of the biggest stages Celtic Park can offer. Last night in Linz was an entirely different kind of education. Watching a 4-goal aggregate lead evaporate in real time in front of a hostile crowd making the impossible feel inevitable is one of football's most brutal experiences. For a 21-year-old in the early weeks at a new club, it was an enormous amount to absorb in a short space of time. Boer's willingness to talk openly about what he witnessed and heard in that dressing room after the whistle shows a maturity that is worth noting. There are questions about Celtic's character and mentality that this result raises. The next few weeks will be when those questions get answered. Celtic face Falkirk on Saturday. They face an Europa League draw on Friday. There is no time to dwell. How this squad responds from here will define what kind of season follows last night. In other news, Chris Sutton has made absolutely clear that he takes no pleasure from being proven right, but that Celtic's decision to sell Arne Engels without bringing in a ready-made replacement before the last tie was simply a mistake, and he has used the word stupid to describe it. Sutton was one of the loudest voices all summer warning that the board's approach to the transfer window was reckless, not because of the individual signings they made, but because of the gap that was left in central midfield when Engels departed for West Ham. Mika Biereth is a talented player. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, when fit and available, adds something different, but neither was ready to fill that exact space in a Champions League qualifier. His wider argument is one that supporters have been making since the window opened. The board had the information available to them. They knew the gap needed filling. They knew the last tie was coming. The preparation did not match the occasion. Sutton's use of stupid is pointed and deliberate. This is not a pundit reaching for headlines. It is a former Celtic striker and Champions League player saying clearly that the decision to allow that particular imbalance to exist before the biggest game of the summer was a serious error of judgment. Last night is the consequence. The question now is whether those responsible acknowledge it and act quickly in the 8 days remaining before the window closes. Lastly, Reo Hatate's departure from Celtic now looks inevitable, with the Daily Record reporting that his exit has been decided and the club are prepared to let him leave this summer. Hatate informed Celtic back in June that he wanted to move on after 4.5 years in Glasgow. The 28-year-old has 189 appearances, 33 goals and 31 assists for the club. He arrived as part of Ange Postecoglou's first January window in 2022 and quickly became one of the most exciting midfielders in Scottish football. His double against Rangers at Parkhead in just his first few weeks at the club gave supporters an immediate sense of what he could do. Under Martin O'Neill this season, Hatate has fallen down the pecking order significantly. He did not feature in the LASK second leg last night. He was not part of the matchday squad. That tells its own story. He has already turned down approaches from Panathinaikos in Greece, an Austrian club and an MLS side, holding out for a move to one of Europe's major leagues. France and a championship club in England have both been mentioned as possible destinations. For Celtic, the departure raises fresh questions alongside the Gineitis uncertainty. Callum McGregor is the only established central midfielder fully committed to the club right now. Biereth and Oxlade-Chamberlain are both new arrivals still finding their feet. That's all the latest Celtic news for today. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment below with your thoughts. I'll see you in the next one. Hail, hail.